an entire photography workflow just on the iPad. Is it possible? Well, let's find out. What's up everyone, Reggie B Photo here and welcome back to the channel. So for those of you who are new, my name is Reggie Ballesteros and I am a wedding photographer based in the San Francisco Bay Area. So for me, my photography workflow has been 100% on a desktop workflow using Lightroom Classic on my custom built Windows PC for pretty much all my file management, culling and editing, exporting, client work. I do have a Dell XPS 15 laptop that I use while on travel for getting work done, importing and backing up photos, but because I don't really trust the accuracy of the display, I don't really use it for editing photos, at least for my client work. And the newest thing that I've been using is the iPad Air 4, and I pretty much use it for sending emails to clients, writing scripts and stuff like that, doing random edits here and there for photos. But as a wedding photographer and stay-at-home dad, I've been wanting to use it actually for importing, culling, and editing photos while I'm around the house with my kids, or just pretty much away from my main editing computer. And you know what? I think I finally dialed in an iPad workflow that works well for my personal needs. So I chose the iPad Air 4 over the iPad Pro because I really wanted just a smaller size screen, and I wanted also something that was a little bit more cost efficient. At the time of buying it, the differences between the iPad Air and the Pro weren't that much different aside from the storage choices and a slight difference in the processor power. The main feature that I did want were the compatibility with the Apple Pencil as well as the Magic Keyboard, which has a trackpad on it. I also love that they moved over the iPad 4 to the USB-C port so that you can use an external hard drive for file management and whatnot. Most importantly though, I wanted the amazing display that Apple puts on its iPads, even the iPad Air. I found that the iPad Air's display to be way more color accurate than my Dell XPS 15, and I actually trust the iPad for judging edits and color correction on it. And you know what? Since a majority of my followers and clients actually consume my photography on mobile phones and tablets a lot more than on their computers, this kind of gives me one more quality control consistency check for seeing the images exactly how my clients might see them. So to maintain the compatibility with my desktop workflow, I'll be using the Lightroom CC app as my main photography app on the iPad. This allows me to import photos into the app, store them in the cloud, cull and edit the photos, and then sync those edits over to the cloud back to my desktop machine. That way when I have some time and I can pick things back up on Lightroom Classic, everything is going to be there. If you explore any type of photography workflow or data management using an iPad, you're going to need some sort of adapter, dongle, cable, something to allow you to kind of add all those peripherals to the device. And this brings me to the sponsor of this video, Anker. So for my iPad Air, which only has one single USB-C port, I'm using the Anker PowerExpand 11-in-1 USB hub. So this thing has 11 different ports. So it has an SD card slot, which is really a must to import photos onto the iPad. It also has a micro SD card slot, which comes in really clutch if I need to grab any behind the scenes footage from my GoPro or my Osmo Pocket. It also has a USB 3.0 port, which is what I use to hook up my Seagate 4TB external hard drive for storing and backing up photos from my SD card, since the iPad Air doesn't actually have that much storage, at least the model that I chose. It also has a USB-C data port, and this thing can transfer up to 5 gigabits per second, and this is great if you're using an external SSD, kind of like the Samsung T5. And then it also has 2 USB 2.0 ports, which you can utilize for a mouse or keyboard if you're into using kind of like full-size peripherals with your iPad. It also has a HDMI port and a display port for external displays, and I actually use this feature for doing live photo critiques with my coaching students over Zoom or recording. That way I can use the Apple Pencil to kind of like draw on the photos and then they can see it live or on a recording. The iPads actually don't have a headphone jack, so this hub has a headphone jack if you like to listen to music or watch some shows while you're editing and doing some photography work. And last but not least, you can actually utilize all the functions that I've talked about and still be able to charge your iPad at the same time because it has a USB-C power delivery port pass through. So that is super important, I think, so that you can keep charge and not have any type of battery limits while you're editing and doing your full photography workflow. If you do want to know more about USB-C hubs and docking stations for iPads, laptops, or whatever device you're using, please check out the link below to Anker's website in the video description. So the first thing that we have to do is connect the USB-C hub to the iPad. From there, we're going to take an SD card with photos on it. And next, I'm going to take my external hard drive and then connect that to the hub as well. All right, so once we got both of those things connected, we're going to go to Files. And now we should be able to see both the SD card right here, as well as the external hard drive. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new folder. I'm going to just call this iPad workflow. And then I'm going to go to my SD card and navigate and check out the photos. And depending on how many photos you have on your SD card, it may take a little bit longer to load. So then we're going to press select and then select all. And then you may be tempted to say duplicate that, but that's going to duplicate it within this folder. What you want to do is move and then navigate to the external hard drive, go to iPad workflow. Items will be copied to iPad workflow on this external hard drive. Say copy, and then we're going to let it do its thing, which it may take a little bit to do this. I do think that the one issue that I do have with this specific part of the workflow is that the iPad has no sort of like progress bar. So you just kind of have to sit and wait and be patient, or, you know, walk away, take a break and have a coffee while it does this kind of like copying process to dump the photos from the SD card. Okay, so after it has imported the photos, we're going to open Lightroom, and then we're going to go to the bottom right and say add photos to Lightroom edits from files. What you want to do is navigate toward the external hard drive that we had, to the folder that we copied the photos to. Now it's going to load them up, and now we're going to press select. And then go to the top and then scroll down until I see the actual JPEG previews, because that means that would be photos that are not RAWs. So we're going to go here and say select all right here. They're going to say open. And now it's going to import these photos into Lightroom. All right, so it looks like we got everything imported. So I'm actually going to create a different album in here. I'm just going to call this Disneyland. All right, so then I'm going to go in here and just do some data management, select all the photos, and then deselect this one and move it over to this Disneyland folder like so. So these are all photos from a recent Disneyland trip that I took with my family. And now we're going to start beginning our culling process. So in Lightroom CC, there's what's called the speed culling mode. And that is if you go click here at the start, it brings you into speed culling mode, which basically if you scroll up and down on the right side of the screen, that is the flags, and if you go up and down on the left side, that is the star rating. So what I'm going to do is just only do the flags, and what I'm going to do is go through pretty quickly and try to pick out 10 images or so. Basically, when you're culling, you basically want to have a kind of like a goal number. Like in this case, I'm going to do this for an Instagram post. I'm probably going to post some night photos. I'm going to be looking for images that I can post. It's that one. And the easiest way to kind of go about culling is to pick the photos that you do want to edit, not necessarily picking all the photos that are good. So just the ones that you do want to edit. Go through here. And as I'm going through, I will do kind of a second pass to reduce it down to 10 photos. What I'm really looking for is just composition, framing, and I'm just going through quickly, finding photos that I like, swiping up whenever I see something that's worth editing. As you can see, scrolling on the iPad is very, very quick. So I like that. I would say it's faster than on Lightroom Classic as far as just blanket scrolling goes. Okay, so now that we got that, let's sort by flagged. and go to just the flagged photos. See how many we selected. So we selected 16, and I want to reduce this down to 10 images. And what we're going to do is just get rid of the duplicates by pressing U to unflag it. So now we have 10 images. Now we can go in and start editing the photos. But before we do that, let's just go in and I'm gonna select everything that's unflagged and then select all. And we're gonna actually just delete all these so that it doesn't take up space on our iPad, but it is on the hard drive itself. So just remember that. So what that's going to do is make sure that when we go into Lightroom Classic, it's just going to have the photos that we have edited here. All right, so now we can move on to the editing. And I want to make a big warning that the first thing you want to do before you start any editing on the iPad is just go up to here, swipe down, and click onto this, and make sure that dark mode, night shift, and true tone are off. The reason for this is night shift and true tone will kind of change the different colors, the temperature, the brightness of the screen automatically based on your environment, and you don't want it to be doing that. Usually on the iPad, I'll either edit at 50% or 75%. I think since these are all dark photos, I'm going to do it at 50%. But what you want to do is just keep it at a consistent brightness wherever you edit. Actually, I think on my iPhone, I do it at 75%, so we'll do it on 75% here too. Now that we got that all set up, that's good to go. And basically, let's just pick one of these photos and kind of give you a tour of what everything looks like. So this is pretty much the same as Lightroom Classic. It's just some of the things are just shifted around. So you have pretty much, this is just the main editing section. And instead of having it basic, color, detail, all that stuff, there's categorized a little bit differently. So we have the basic adjustments here, exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, whites. The cool thing is the tone curve is like a visual tone curve instead of on the side here. So this is a little bit more intuitive to play with actually. And then we have the colors, which you can do all the different type of temperature, saturation, all that stuff. And then you can actually mix the different colors, which is the hue, saturation, and luminance for each different color channel. And then you can also hit the color grading, which is basically the same thing as split toning. And then we have the effects, which is going to be texture, clarity, dehaze, all that good stuff, as well as a vignette. And then the detail, which is super critical for Fujifilm stuff, sharpening, radius, all that stuff to dial in your non-wormy photos. And then we have lens correction and all that good stuff. And then geometry. So we even have all the geometry upright tools. So again, the Lightroom CC is not really watered down at this point. And then you also, if you are shooting with Fujifilm files, you can go in here and browse for the different film simulations. So you can add Classic Chrome, you can add Eterna, Classic Neg, all that stuff. It's all really built in to here already. In this case, I'm just going to put it to the Adobe Color for now. But yeah, so if you wanted to look at all that stuff, you could basically have your film simulations all good to go. And also, as far as presets go, if you actually go into your computer, you can sync them. Basically, if you go to Lightroom CC on the desktop and import your presets, after you've downloaded them, unzip them, import them into Lightroom CC and wait for it to sync. And if you go into yours, all the presets are just right here. So I have all my presets right here, and that's how we're going to start these edits. So let's edit a few example photos. I want to basically be using my bolder preset for all these photos. Since they're at night, I don't want it to be reduced contrast. So we're going to do Embarcadero bold. And then what I'm going to do is actually change this to Classic Chrome because I want to hit Classic Chrome. And then this is going to serve as a starting point for all the edits. So I'm actually going to copy the settings first. Copy settings. Select all and paste the settings so that they all have the same kind of starting points. Cool. So now that we got that done, we're going to edit the first photo. Let's see. We're going to bring up the exposure just a little bit. bring up the contrast, and then I'm going to bring down the highlights quite a bit. To adjust it, if you on the trackpad, you just either hit the extreme right or the left, and that's going to change the photo. All right. Let's see, and then maybe bring back the whites just a little bit. And then I do want to warm up the image just a little bit. Cool. And I do think maybe the exposure is a little too hot. Cool. Awesome. If you ever do want to reset any of these parameters, just double click the name right here, so contrast, and then it goes away, but go to extreme right and add that back in. So I think I'm liking how this looks, and then I'm going to hit my detail panel, and then the cool thing is if you put your finger on here, you can actually have the filter kind of come up so you can check the sharpening. All right, ISO is at 2000, so I may just hit the noise reduction just a little bit, and I think we're good with this photo. Let's see, let's edit this one right here. This one, it looks a little bit too faded for me, so I'm going to bring it up, bring up the contrast, and then bring down the highlights a lot. Oops. Pop up the shadows, and then add some warmth here. It is really kind of extreme on this left side, so what we're going to do is add this, which is basically the selective adjustments, and I'm going to add a graduated filter, bring down the exposure, and then kind of like bring that over here, and then adjust this. Cool. So that's that edit. So now we have all these photos edited. Nice, looking nice on the iPad here. And then if we go here, we are now onto exporting. And then basically to export, you want to select all right here. And then we want to share the photos, and then you want to go over to the settings right here. And then you're going to export to files, and we're going to choose JPEG. As far as the dimensions go, I think, let's see, 248 pixels is great for Instagram. If you want to get it exactly, you can have it so that the long side is 1080 pixels for Instagram. That's something you can do, or actually 1350. So I think the most you can have is 1350, so I'm going to leave it at that. 1350 pixels. And then you also want to make sure that you have output sharpening set up. I put it to screen and to standard. And then we go to here. So we're exporting and rendering to files. And then now that you have that exported to files, you can pretty much save it anywhere you like, or you can upload it to Dropbox and export it to Instagram, whatever you need to do. So the awesome thing is if you go over to syncing photos, what it's doing now is it's syncing the 10 photos that I edited on Lightroom CC. And once this is all synced up, it's actually going to appear in my Lightroom catalog. And now I can go into Lightroom, and if I needed to export from here or double check the photos or anything like that, we can dial them in and finish them up in Lightroom on my computer. So I will admit that I'm still tweaking and kind of like dialing in my iPad workflow as I go, but I'm having a lot of fun incorporating it into my wedding photography and even my content creation. The ability to use the keyboard and the trackpad is awesome for doing kind of like quick work sessions and not really losing a step as far as functionality and productivity. When I want to kind of slow things down, the Apple Pencil is really refreshing for those kind of more laid back and intentional editing sessions when you really want to go deep into editing a single photo. So now I turn it to you. I'm curious, how many of you have explored editing workflows on tablets or mobile phones? Do you have any tips, tools, or strategies that have worked best for you? If so, I'm open to your recommendations and please leave them down in the comments. If you did enjoy this video and you want to see more kind of like iPad editing videos in the future, please be sure to give it a like. And as always, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, as I make a new Fujifilm or photography video every week. But if that's too long, be sure to follow me on Instagram at @RGBPhoto, as I'm posting new tips, tricks, and tutorials every single day. If you don't follow me on there, your photography is going to be lagging. I'm not even lying about that. That's it for me. Remember to get out, go shoot, and I'll catch you all in the next one.